Right, can you all see that?
Yes.
Brilliant, thank you. So I'm Julie Searle, and I'm the Strategy Officer for Somerset Council Waste Services. You may know us all as formerly the Somerset Waste Partnership, but when the 4 districts in the county became Somerset Council in April, we became part of the council itself rather than a separate organisation. So I'm going to talk to you tonight about I'm going to start off with the boring stuff, which is the waste from the halls itself, the legal position around that, and what should happen, and then move on to some more interesting stuff about the other types of things that can be done to get the community in and engaged about waste. And some of mine might cross over slightly with Ginny's, so I won't go into too much detail with certain bits, so as she'll go into more detail on that. So just a quick overview about us. So we manage household waste collection services across Somerset. So that's all the curbside collections, the bulky waste collections, garden waste collections, recycling centres. We do a lot on waste prevention, so waste reduction and reuse, and that is one of the key areas that we want to focus a lot more on over the next few years. And of course, we dispose of the waste as well. Most of it goes through energy from waste now at a plant in Avonmouth, with a very, very small amount going to landfill still. So where we are in terms of what we do, our recycling rate is currently 56.4%. It went up quite significantly after the introduction of Recycle More. Most of the stuff we collect stays in the UK, including all plastics. The only bit that goes to export at the moment is some mixed paper and cardboard, and that's generally because there isn't the recycling capacity in the UK. So it's international markets. People manufacturing stuff overseas want the paper and cardboard to make their packaging. So as I mentioned, very little went to landfill, 6.2%. So we're recycling over half of it, and the majority of what's left goes to produce energy from waste. And you can see all the detail of what happens to everything we collect on our website here on the recycling tracker page. So moving on to waste in community buildings, I'll start off by saying I know that a lot of the buildings have many different ways of handling the waste from the buildings. A lot of it will depend on the size of the hall, the size of the groups that use it, and generally the type of activities that's going on. So what I'm going to do is sort of talk about the textbook side of it, what exactly the legal position is, and how it should be managed in the eyes of the law. So we recognise there's a lot of challenges. Buildings, they're all different sizes. They have different types of events going on, different numbers of people using them. Some are very busy, some are very small. So there's different quantities of waste. Some will produce very little waste at all. Some will produce quite a lot from the events. It's reliant on volunteers and the public to sort out and put bins out for collection, make sure things are dealt with properly. We know that some will be using household services, and as with everything at the moment, finances are an issue, funding is an issue, and the costs of collection can be a challenge for some halls. Now there is a legal position from waste from the halls, and I'll cover that in a second. And we know that at the moment there is a real lack of awareness among sort of commercial organisations, particularly the small ones, about their legal responsibilities about waste. And essentially, the overall message is all waste producers, and that is anybody that produces waste, whether you're a householder, whether you're a business, whether you're a village hall, whether you're some other organisation. So you have a duty to handle your waste responsibly and in line with the legal obligations for that waste. And on our website, we've got a lot of information about that. Freezing. Sorry, I'm just trying to get onto the next slide. Oh, there we are. Right. So the legal position. So this is all defined under the Controlled Waste Regulations 2012. So as a council, that tells us what our obligations are and what the obligations of other organisations and businesses and schools and churches and all that, how they have to manage their waste. So the basic principle is that any building which is used mainly for public meetings, and by that it means things like sort of parish council meetings and anything relating to governance, that type of thing, where the public can come along. So that would be deemed as household waste for which a collection charge can be made. But any building which has other activities within there, so for example, those that are hired out to local groups, there are clubs, societies, even rented out to the public for birthday parties or other events. Now, that is all deemed to be commercial waste. So I think that would cover most of the halls and community buildings in Somerset. They would fall under that commercial waste. So by law, this means that any waste from that building should have a commercial waste collection in place with a licensed waste contractor, and they shouldn't be using household services at all. And that includes taking it home to put it in your household recycling or taking it to a recycling site. Most of our, or some of our recycling sites have commercial waste areas where you can take waste and drop it off there for a small fee. Like I say, though, we know there are a lot of arrangements in place with halls in the county, depending on what's going on. A lot of them will have these commercial collections in place, and we know that some that just don't produce a lot of waste might have other ways of getting rid of that. So there's a lot going on. Excuse me, sorry. There's a lot going on nationally at the moment with waste and recycling reforms, and a lot of it is good. There's a move to simplify recycling across England, so that wherever you are, from home or at work, you can recycle the same set of materials wherever you are. And this is going through at the moment, and it's due to start in 2025 for some and 2026 for others. And the whole aim of it is to make things consistent across the country, so that there's less confusion about what to recycle where you are. We've got a target of reaching 65 municipal recycling rate by 2035. So that includes household waste and business waste and similar waste like that. So getting waste out of landfill and incineration, making sure it's recycled instead, reducing carbon emissions. I mentioned earlier that we can't recycle everything in the UK because there's a lack of capacity. So one of the aims of these reforms is to improve capacity within the UK, so that much more can be recycled here and a lot less is exported elsewhere. So this starts from 2025, 31st March 2025, these obligations come in place for businesses, and that also includes non-household municipal, which is a bit of a random term, but essentially it means any organisation that produces waste similar to a household but isn't a household. So that will include the village halls and businesses that aren't sort of factories producing industrial waste. So there's a slight delay on that. 31st of March 2026, that's when the household deadline is. And 31st of March 2027. There's a bit of leeway there for very small businesses, so micro firms, which employ less than 10 people, 10 full-time equivalent people. And at that point, 31st of March 2027, plastic film, so plastic bags and wrappers, that sort of thing, also need to be added to all collections, and that's including at home as well. So the standard set of materials that they're asking us to recycle everywhere is paper and cardboard, plastic bottles, plastic pots, tubs and trays, food and drink cans, cartons, glass bottles and jars, and also a separate collection of food waste. So for those of you that live in Somerset, you'll recognise that we do all this at the moment at the curbside through our Recycle More service. So this, the main expansion here in Somerset is this needs to be applied to business and non-household premises as well as the household ones. And then again, good news that we'll be able to add plastic film collections to everywhere by 31st of March 2027. So that's the legal position there. So what can community buildings do? So my opinion is the first thing you need to do is, understand what those obligations are, how you choose to implement them, and whether you choose to do anything slightly different is one thing, but at least know what you should be doing. So ideally set up separate recycling collections for food waste and recyclables. Again, on our website that I linked to earlier, there is a list of collections contractors operating in the area. So we would suggest just getting in touch with a few, get some quotes, get some prices. Also on that website, if you go onto there, there's a website called The Business of Recycling, which is produced by Wrapped, and that's linked to from that website. And it's offline at the moment because they're making changes because the simpler recycling forms were only recently announced. So they're setting the website up to allow for those dates and everything. But there's a really good way, there's a really good tool on there to work through sort of the types of waste you produce and what sort of bins you might need and how much capacity you might need and frequency of collection and that sort of stuff. So it's really useful in terms of working out what would be best for you so that you can get best value out of any collection. I think it's worth, if you haven't got one already, in any terms and conditions for hiring the hall, make sure there's a waste and recycling policy for users in there, so that any arrangements are clear for users. So be that whether you want them to use bins in the hall and separate accordingly, whether you want them to take the waste on their own and deal with it otherwise, take it away, I mean. And, if there are large events, you may want them, people hiring to arrange a collection of their own with a contractor of their choice. So I think that's really important to make sure there's a policy in place so that that's clear for everybody who uses the hall. And always, encourage them to separate out recyclables and food waste. It's better for all of us and for everything if we recycle as much as we can. So that's the boring legal side of it. And now we can move on to some of the more interesting stuff. So community halls and village halls can be real hubs for reducing waste and waste activities and increasing recycling. And there are so many different events out there, and I've put a few suggestions on here. One I particularly wanted to talk about was TerraCycle, and you may have heard of them, you may not have heard of them, but what they specialize in is hard to recycle materials. So the stuff that we can't collect at home or at the curbside or in standard waste collections because they're difficult to recycle. And they offer a wide range of what they call programs. And this is an opportunity for some to do a bit of fundraising. It's not something to get rich, they don't pay a lot, but if you offer up collection points for some of these programs. As you send it off to TerraCycle and they recycle it, they can you can earn points, and these points can be redeemed for fundraising, for charities or schools or similar organisations like that. So it's a small avenue to raise a bit of funds, but they're quite popular. The only challenge is every program that you sign up to. So I've just picked a random few from the website here. So they've got a pen one. This is cleaning materials, toothpaste and dental type materials, Pringles and Baby Bell. So each program is a separate one, and you have to keep the waste for each program separate, and you send it off separately. Some groups, they'll allow people to send it in mixed, and then they have a load of volunteers to separate it all out into the different programs. Others ask people to keep it separately, and you can do as many or as few as you like. So if in your area you thought there was a gap for something, you could always sign up to just recycle one particular program. And that's one way of just a small amount of income there. There's lots of events and stuff, and Jenny's going to touch more on Fixie and probably the repair cafe side of things. These are sort of things that you can do to get people in and encourage reuse and repair. Give and take days, it's like a kind of jumble sale essentially. People can come along, bring something they don't want, take something else that they don't want. Swishing, which is again similar with clothes, so people can bring along clothes that they don't want anymore. You pay a small fee, and you can go away with a new wardrobe for very little. And community composting, again, different halls will have different land availability around them and different needs, but offering somewhere that the community to compost, again, is a good way of reducing waste. And the final one I'm going to talk about is community fridges. Excuse me a second. So the community fridge network is coordinated by an organisation called Hubbub. They do a lot of brilliant work on reducing waste, and novel campaigns to get people engaged is brilliant. So according to their website, there's over 450 in the UK, and from my very small map there, you can see there are quite a few in Somerset already. So a community fridge is not just about food poverty, so they're open to everybody. So it does help tackle food poverty, obviously, because anyone can come in, but also it's about reducing waste. So anyone can share food and anyone can take food. So if you've got a glut of something that you've grown in the summer, you can take any surplus along to the community fridge and let others help themselves. They'll take food from supermarkets and local food businesses, and local producers. So it varies day to day what might be in there, and anyone can pop along at any time and take what they're interested in. So they're often run by community groups, and the Hubbub website there's a lot of guidance and support on there on how to set it up, and various tools covering everything you need. And they're really successful, and they're really popular in the local areas where they've set up. So I think that's really it from me. So details of how to contact me or any of us, follow us on social media. And yeah, I'll take any questions later on.